Hello music lovers. Welcome back to the Woodshed. I have brought in Uncle Ben Eller.
Hi, it's me.
From the internet. He is, it's fair to say that you like reverb more than I do.
My name is Ben Eller and I'm addicted to sauce.
It's been 11 days since your last sauce relapse, which is great.
I do enjoy myself a luscious reverb. The thing that I'm always telling people is I like for a guitar to sound like it's somewhere.
Yeah. You know? Yeah, and I think when I say that I don't enjoy it as much as Ben does, most of the time I like to be playing somewhere, and that place provides the reverb.
Provides the sauce.
Yeah. For all my weekend warriors out there, they're playing bars and clubs under normal circumstances. You kind of know what I'm talking about. Reverb's not really needed when you're actually in a room because you don't need to replicate where you're at. However, for recording or for guys that are on in-ear monitors,
oh yeah,
that's something that maybe you only feed yourself a reverb and front of house does not have a reverb. That's a cool pro tip at you.
Yeah,
right there.
I'll tell you this too. My mom's living room has terrible natural reverb, so I've got to be jamming with the verb pedal every time I'm gigging there.
I can verify that as well. Okay, so with that said, we are very fortunate. Some folks over at MXR, Strymon,
TC Electronics,
and we are also using a Logic reverb because if you don't have all of these goodies, but you do have, say, a MacBook or something like that, you get some great reverbs for free.
Yeah.
I happen to own a beautiful, all-original mint 1963 Deluxe reverb, so we're going to throw that thing in the mix too.
The original stuff.
Yeah, see what these guys think their springs sound like versus the real deal. So on that note, there's some things here that are different from pedal to pedal. This one only has 3 knobs with a push to cycle. The Hall of Fame has what?
It's got a lot of different modes on it. Yeah, you've got a room, a hall, a church, all kinds of stuff on there, as well as their tone print thing and all that jazz.
And I think the biggest difference between the Strymon Blue Sky and the other 2 pedals is that they just have a vanilla knob called tone.
Yeah, just kind of overall, is it dark, is it bright?
Right.
Yeah.
So the Strymon has something that I personally really, really love, and I wish every reverb pedal had it, which is the ability to change the low end and the high end independently of each other. Mm-hmm. So that leads me to a really important point in this video, which is if I were to take advantage of all these flexibility benefits, these wouldn't have them. And that puts it automatically
unfair advantage.
It's an unfair advantage just from tweakability. So what we did is on all the pedals, we just put everything at noon. That way you guys know that we don't have any kind of preference towards one manufacturer or the other.
Yeah.
With that said, obviously you can take the pedals, tweak them to your heart's content. Mm-hmm. And if you really love a lot of flexibility, this one just out of the gate has more options than the other 2. But they all sound really good. They all sound different. Let's dig in here, and I say we start with springs.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's break down our signal chain that we got here so far, too. We recorded these clips using your
guitar
signature model.
In the middle position, just vanilla as can be. No other pedals or anything.
Oh, we did have that. We have a DoD grunge pedal.
That's right.
But we're not using it.
We do have this, and at no point is it in the signal chain, but we thought it was really important that you see that we have it.
Yeah, but it sounded better with it off.
And it sounded better when it wasn't even plugged in
yeah.
than any other version, which was nice. I really like that. So I think to start the game, let's start with the original from 1963, courtesy of Leo Fender, a Deluxe reverb in his natural habitat. This is the spring on the reverb.
I mean, that is the perfect reverb for people who like things that are nice.
Yeah, the interesting thing about a spring reverb that is really difficult to replicate is the actual boing that you get when you play and you send it, because with a spring reverb being in the amp itself, the amp shakes and it's doing all these other things that digitally are just really hard to replicate.
Yeah, because it's an organic mechanism. You know, it's actually a spring in there bouncing around and stuff. So anytime that you do a digital replication of that in a pedal or whatever, you're trying to mimic an organic material doing organic physics stuff, which can be unpredictable sometimes.
And those imperfections of something like that are what makes it really special. Okay, so now we're going to start with the TC spring, as Ben is showing off. Everything is at noon.
That's noon Eastern Standard Time.
That's right. In the toggle, it can be slow or fast.
Yeah, we put it on the short pre-delay.
That's right.
Yeah, so you get a quick response out of it, so you can hear the tone of the imitated spring reverb.
This is courtesy of TC. Let's take a listen.
I detect hints of oak. There's a slight vanilla-y sort of thing on the back end, light tannins.
Great mouthfeel.
Definitely darker sounding.
I'm going to say this. I have to be unbiased here, and everybody knows that I've used TC for many, many years.
As have I.
But, boy, that pedal really, it shapes the innate, what I call the fundamental tone. Innately, before there's any reverb happening, the signal is a lot darker. There's a lot less transient on the guitar.
I didn't know if that was just my imagination or not.
No, that's a fact. I'm picking that up. With those knobs at noon, the spring is less boingy, and it lasts less. Obviously, you can hear that. But
you can tweak that and stuff, of course. You can make that go really long or really short on the TC. The sweep of the knobs on the TC goes really far, so you can probably find whatever range you're looking for out of that pedal.
Yeah. Overall, I think it sounds good. I think now, after hearing it compared to the Deluxe by itself, it's a little dark for me because I use a dark fundamental tone.
That's kind of the thing, yeah. It's like if you're the kind of player that does use a more cutting, bright tone, maybe having that darker sauce on top is exactly what you want.
Yeah. Overall, I think the hardest thing that all these guys are going to have is replicating the randomness of the spring. So let's go on to the MXR spring.
All right.
All right, so for me, that again doesn't have the boing.
I was going to say the same thing. It almost sounds a little bit more plate-ish or something to me than that kind of snap that you get out of those springs.
Does not have the boing.
I don't know if you're going to become a surf king with that.
Yeah, you're definitely not going to get into what I would consider an accurate kind of surf territory with that. I will say, I love how much natural tone of the guitar passes through. It's a lot brighter.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not even a little bit brighter. It's a lot brighter.
It's a lot brighter.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a thing where the pedal's adding highs. I think those are the highs that are supposed to be there.
Yeah, I think so too. It sounds like it was just really coming off of the guitar and not just the sauce itself brightening everything up.
So I love the, I guess it would be the digital converters, right?
I suppose so.
Yeah, somebody can correct us in the comments if you like. I know somebody out there will. But in general, the pass-through of the MXR, I really like. The spring boing, not as good as the Deluxe.
I could use a little bit more of that, that spring kind of boing sort of sound. I could use a little bit more of that. Maybe that's something you can dial in.
Yeah.
But with everything at high noon, man, when I have a spring reverb problem, I want to go surfing. I want to hit the waves.
Yeah, for me, when I think spring reverb, I think 70s outlaw country. I think Chris Stapleton, a great measuring stick type of lick for spring reverb is like Tennessee Whiskey, the opening couple of notes of that. Because you can hear it like boinging around, and I'm sure there's a lot of ambience in that session. God knows if they even tracked it in like a wood floor.
Yeah,
who knows? But that's a great measuring stick for me is the 70s outlaw country. And this is a little too polished and clean.
Yeah, I think so too, because whenever I think of spring reverb, again, I'm kind of thinking more of like Dick Dale, classic surf kind of tone.
What Malagania? What's the...
like Mizzaloo, Pulp Fiction?
That's what I was thinking of,
Yeah, where it's like, you can hear the springs almost starting to like break up and stuff. I like that sound right there. I think that's really cool. It's because like the whole amp is so loud that it's vibrating the springs.
Yeah,
That's hard to replicate that in a pedal.
All right, so last up is the Strymon. Again, the Strymon has an advantage, okay? We can make the low end go away. We can make the top end go away. We didn't do any of that. We just put everything at noon across the board. So
let's give that a listen.
Here we go. All right, Ben, what do you think?
I think first impression is that it preserved the tone of the guitar very well. I feel like it colored the tone that way.
I think it did it the best.
I think it did too.
Yeah, and that's without talking about the reverb. That's just the natural quality of the pedal.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that too gets the closest to that. I think the word that I would use is that rhythmic effect that a spring reverb has, where you can hear it go, yeah, 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 yeah. You know what I mean? Like, the MXR sounded great and polished, but it didn't have that cascade.
The randomness.
The randomness. Yeah, that I love to hear in a spring reverb.
It's like the boing is what I call the boing factor. Yeah. So overall, man, you can't really mess with the Deluxe. Like, hands down, I mean, if you want spring reverb, use the amp.
It's the original stuff, dude.
I know all these companies are going to email us and be like, what are you guys doing? But hey, if you want spring reverb, get it from the source. Get it from the well.
Yeah, I think so. That's one of those things about spring reverb too in pedals and digital simulations that I think they haven't quite nailed down yet. Is because, okay, whenever you're using an actual spring reverb, like what you have on the amp, and you hit that thing, and that spring vibrates, the rate of vibration slows down as the spring calms down. You know what I mean? And I think that's where some of that boing and that rhythmic cascade that I'm talking about comes from. I think maybe the digital ones are essentially a spring vibrating the same rate all the way through. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. I'm going to add in another Mythbusters type of train of thought here, which would be two things. Point number A? Is that right? Point number A? Point number A would be as you play, you're constantly re-hitting the
re-exciting the string.
You're
you're
re-exciting that spring, and the randomness that happens in music with playing is going to change all of that. Any kind of overdrive pedal, any kind of tremolo pedal, all that stuff's going to compound that.
Mm-hmm.
Point number B would be aging, right?
There's that too. Yeah.
This spring in this amp is what, freaking 60 years old.
Good Lord.
You know, it's like that metal and its elasticity is going to be very different now than it would when it rolls off the factory line at any manufacturer.
Yeah.
So I think when you're really getting down to it, a lot of magic is in the fact that the metal's old.
That's true.
And it's reacting different. And I've always thought that with like backline Deluxes when I've got them on tour or whatever. Like the reverbs are never like, that doesn't sound like mine. Yeah. And I always forget they're like, oh yeah, mine's 60 years old.
Yeah, they've been beat on for a long time.
Yeah. And even if you didn't beat on it, and the amp was never played, it's still, the metal is aging.
Yeah.
So I think as far as digital replication, Fractals, Kempers, Strymons, MXRs, whatever, I think that's going to be the tallest order to fill.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we've got through the spring thing, let's observe one of the most used reverb sounds that we tend to utilize in the studio and on stage, which is a plate reverb sound. This is, again, originally a studio effect that was famously used on like Van Halen 1 is what I think of when I think of a plate reverb sound.
Some of those Cliff Dover tones and some of the classic EJ verb, according to one James Santiago, is a brighter plate, a brighter reverb, because your starting tone is so dark.
Right.
So the plate verbs on some of those records I think of as almost like shimmery.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it keeps it from being too dark overall sounding. Yeah, so I'm interested to see what the differences are between these pedals, considering this is such a often used reverb sound. So let's dig in first with the TC Hall of Fame.
Coming at you.
Now that to me sounds like a room that is lined with rich mahogany, velvety carpets and drapes.
It sounds really dark.
It's dark sounding.
It's really, really dark. It's like surprising me how dark that is, because we're hearing, Telecaster style pickups through a Deluxe, which is on the brighter end of life. The decay, which would be your time, right? How long that is not as long as I would expect for it to be at noon.
At noon.
Yeah, at noon I would think that would be like...
pretty washy.
Same with mix. That's not as wet as I would expect something to be.
Yeah, I've noticed that with the TC stuff, the mix kind of level gets pretty steep. It's like, it'll quickly go to like, okay, is it on to, whoa,
too much. Yeah, it's like, oh yeah,
you gotta fine tune it a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, that being said, you can get it exactly where you want it. Yeah, it is definitely a darker kind of sound than I was expecting.
And the pedal, and by that I mean the pedal. I'm
yeah.
preferencing that. That's not the reverb that I'm finding overtly dog. It's just an innate
nature of it.
Yeah, the nature of the pedal.
But again, if you were using like a super bright 5150 or an old Marshall or something like that, that's a really cutting tone, that might be nice to kind of counterbalance it. Because if you're using that kind of sound and you got a turbo bright verb, it might just be ear destroying.
Yeah,
so that might work for certain rigs.
And again, it's it's hands too.
That too.
Like I mean, some guys have a lot of snap and a lot of top end in their playing. So yeah, overall, my answer for both the plate and the spring with the TC, the first thing I say is, wow, it's dark. It's super dark. Yeah. Okay, moving forward.
So next up, let's check out that very special plate setting that we can find here on the good old MXR Reverb.
That's a great plate.
That's a really
That's really good.
That's kind of like what I think of when I think of a plate.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I like the crispiness of the guitar cutting through a little bit more. And one of the things again that I think is a plus in both of them is that when you set the knob at noon, it's not too much.
Yeah, because it'd be easy for that to get way too washy and overwhelming. That's the kind of thing where it's like you can definitely tell there's verb on it. It sounds like the guitar is somewhere, as I like to say, but it's not ever getting in the way, like too in front of the guitar playing itself. I'm a fan of that. I think that sounds really good. And again, the inherent brightness of the guitar,
like the transience of the playing,
yeah,
like the transience and like I can tell on certain notes that I'm using my fingers and certain notes I'm using a pick. Like you can hear that really clear.
Yeah,
I like that. So kudos to MXR for just maintaining guitar quality.
It sounds really good. That's something I was wondering if that was just a quality of the spring setting, that it preserves so much more of the integrity of the guitar tone. But it sounds like that's just across the board with this pedal.
Yeah, it just seems to be something they've built in. I like that.
I do too. I like things that are nice.
Now we've got the most expensive pedal of the bunch, which is the Strymon Blue Sky. Obviously, the tweakability is, man,
through the roof. Yeah.
It's through the roof. So
you pay for it.
I don't want to see in the comments, this one sounds better than that one. It's like we didn't change any knobs. This is just everything at noon. So just keep that in mind that this is a noon setting, noon o'clock.
Let's hear that blue plate special.
Yeah, high noon on the blue plate coming at you. Man, that's round sounding.
That sounds really good.
That sounds really, really
fat.
good.
It's pretty fat sounding. Especially on that last decay, on that last chord hit. You really had this nice big round bloom. But it does decay pretty fast, actually.
Yeah, so to get it to be in line with the MXR, I would run less decay on the Strymon. I think the time stamp is kind of in that
just
range.
Inherently different on those two, for sure.
Yeah, I like that. I like that in the MXR a lot. Both of those sound like what I'm putting into the amp.
And again, it sounds like a plate to me. Like whenever I'm thinking of what a plate reverb should sound like, that's pretty much it. That sounds really good. I would say that's pretty close to being on level with a lot of the nicer plugins and stuff like that I've heard.
All right, so as a ringer, we're going to give you the Logic Space Designer reverb, and we just turned it on and left it as it was.
Yeah, didn't tweak anything.
Yeah, to keep it fair.
Yeah.
Right? So keep in mind, if you're working on a laptop, MacBook, or anything like that, you get this reverb for free.
Yeah, it's free. It costs nothing.
Yeah.
Cheap as free.
This is the cheapest reverb.
Freever. Way wetter.
Okay, man. So out of the gate, this is where my brain thinks all of the reverbs should be with the knobs at noon. My brain says noon should be that wet, and they're not. You have to really gas them up, and that might be a plus in the manufacturer's side of it, thinking ahead,
keeping you from overdoing it. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, because that plate is overrunning with sauce. You should probably put all that sauce in a bowl.
That's right. That should be maybe on some kind of noodle dish or something.
Ooh, yeah, sop it up real nice.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. It sounds good. I mean, again, if that amount of reverb were ever live, you'd pretty much disappear in the mix.
Yeah,
You're
if it
gone.
fits in like any good sized room whatsoever, yeah, it's getting lost for
Or
sure.
that's like your praise and worship reverbs. I know those
Yeah.
guys can run wild with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, so let's talk about the variants in the pedals themselves. The cheapest is the TC.
Yeah, about $150, something like that. MXR I think is $199, something in that
Some
range.
in the 200 range,
Yeah.
and this is like a 279, 300
It's
kind
not
of range.
cheap.
So what I think that you're getting from across the board, from a hardware standpoint, before we even talk about sound, you get true stereo with inputs and outputs. And I'm not nitpicking. It's probably my only complaint to the MXR. It is stereo, but you have to use tip ring sleeve.
Yeah.
I think that is uncool. And everything else, this is the bang for the buck.
I think it's really
If
good
I was
to
going to go budget, I would go the MXR.
Yeah.
For my needs, I like to run stereo
If
a
you
lot.
like a stereo rig and stuff, ooh, that's got an advantage for sure.
And that's not a fault at the MXR so much as it is. It's just a fault of tip ring sleeve technology. Those cables are prone to go bad.
They are.
They don't hold up on the road and under planes and stuff like that. So I would lean in to the extra dollar papers that you spend, get you this and get you some more tweakability. Also, a one-up to those is not only do you get the reverb that you set to your bypass, you can have one free preset in favorite.
That's
so
cool.
this actually all three do really great extreme crazy reverbs.
Oh, they do.
And they're really good, but you're pretty much dedicating your pedal to an extreme reverb, and you can't. And whereas on this one, I think that's what the extra $100 gets you.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing is like if you loaded either of these pedals with all those features and stuff,
They would be $100 more.
they'd be $100 more.
Okay, so now I'm going to be truly unbiased and say this one colors the tone too much for me.
It actually does color it quite a lot. I don't think I was even aware of it because I've used the Hall of Fame for years and years and years with all of our different outfits.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really aware of how much that was actually coloring my tone.
We're not guys that sit around and do these types of shootouts. Both Ben and I like to work when we make records or work on anything together. We go for, that sounds great, or that doesn't.
Go with it.
Yeah. Once something gets this sounds great, then we're off to the races. This is like the first time I think we've ever done any kind of shootout.
Yeah, I think so. It's been interesting to hear them back to back like that.
Yeah, especially when you get ringers like the actual spring itself. What do you think, man? Like what do you think about this one? Has how many presets?
This has got like 6 different modes on it.
Yeah,
It'll do the cool like shimmery pad thing. It'll do all that stuff, which is really cool. Not something you expect to see in a more affordable reverb pedal. I think it's cool they put that much processing power in a pedal that's a normal pedal casing size too.
Yeah.
Strymon's got to eat up a little bit more of your board if you're very space conscious.
Both of these pedals require more juice.
Do they?
Yeah,
didn't know that.
than the TC.
And TC, if you're really, really, really on the go with your pedal board, they also make the mini that's like a pack of gum size.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I actually have that on my my clinic board.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I think now this is going to take that spot.
It really, really does sound great.
Yeah, this rules.
I'm impressed by how much this preserves the tone of the actual guitar
That's what
itself,
I'm after,
how clear
man.
it is.
Because, again, with any time-based thing, you start putting in, I like an analog or tape style delay where that makes it darker too.
True.
By the time you get this big woolly dark tone, if your pedal itself and the converters, start coloring your tone, now you're dark. However, this is like the Strymon in that it is 2 input jacks and output jacks. So no TRS
That's cool.
for this.
Yeah, that's an advantage for sure.
That's a plus on that one. However, this one sounds freaking so good.
That was really, really good.
So good. So these two are my favorites.
Yeah, I think so. If I was going to pick 2, it's definitely these 2. Again, that's got a lot
budget.
of advantages.
$100 more.
This is $100 less and still sounds really
Really
great.
good.
And if you're not running a stereo rig, you won't miss, the extra jacks and stuff that you got on there.
With that said, man, those Logic verbs rock.
They sound good, man.
Sound
I've
really
always
good.
been impressed with the quality of the plugins that you get whenever you buy Logic. The delays, like the stereo delays and stuff, sound great. The reverbs sound awesome and are very, very tweakable. Pretty great to know that you can get that for free if you buy Logic.
Yeah, you and I also, speaking about kind of just how we work together, we've never really jumped down the rabbit hole of all of the crazy plug-in packs.
Mm-mm.
Neither one of us have one of these $10,000 libraries of plugins. We've
no.
never really done that.
Mm-mm. That'd be fun to kind of go down that rabbit hole.
Again, that's more like a mix engineer thing, and we're always sending stuff off to be mixed. We don't mix.
We need more time to play video games and eat food.
Yeah, I'm wanting to play the guitar as much as possible and do tweaking the least as possible.
Yeah.
I think that's the evolution of my rigs over the years. I've gone to these huge 80s style refrigerators, and now I'm back on like 50 watt heads and a pedal board.
Yeah.
You know?
Track it, send it to somebody else to worry about.
Yeah. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the shootout. Hope you learned a little bit. And remember, before you get in the comments and you start running wild like a bunch of bandits, remember that we just put the knobs at noon for the very reason to say this is what the manufacturers said is new.
Balance the playing field.
Yeah. Yeah. You can tweak anything, I think, into other territory.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Cheers. I'm gonna sneeze.
Don't point it at me. COVID.